Welcome, everybody. Karl Hammer is the founder and owner of the Compost company. um, Over the years, most of what I've learned about Vermont Compost Company has been from working with, all the operators and folks that you've had kind of come and go throughout the last 20 years. I've worked with quite a few of them. But for now, it's just an honor and a pleasure to be able to host this discussion with you, Karl. And I'll turn the mic over to you and let you introduce your operation.
Thank you. And I will say this. So this is a drone shot from a few days ago. We had a snow and Sid made this picture. So that's kind of what it looked like a week and a half ago, before most of the snow has pretty much all melted. Obviously not the snow piles. I will say I've never not been a farmer. I've always thought of my compost making as a discipline of my farming. This is a farm where you're looking at now 26 or 7 years of our management of this 49 acres or so on Main Street in the city of Montpelier. At the top of the picture, you can see Camel's Hump off in the distance, which, if you're Vermont familiar, that's a kind of a real estate joke, Camel's Hump views, which we do have from the top of the farm. But this is kind of leaning east, and Camel's Hump is to the west, so we're facing it. And this is now in Vermont law, as since the governor signed Act 41, a farm. In the center of the picture here is feeding structure and laying house that is to house 1,200 laying hens. That's where the eggs get laid. This used to be the chicken house on the farm. This is where compost comes down the hill, and in these buildings gets made into compost-based blended soils of various kinds. And these are the active compost pads. So, and in order to keep track of this is actually a couple-year-old map. You can see the chicken house where it says chicken house. It hasn't been built, but we have a lot of folks now, and it's urgent that these places have, that we know what we're talking about. So if you send someone to Old Town for someone, or up to 10-8, or Diana or Linda, they can tell what you're talking about. Here's last fall. This site down here by the greenhouse, I think right here, we're at 964 feet of elevation. And when you get up here, you're at 1,100 feet. Okay, so it's about 140 feet of rise in a relatively short distance. At its steepest here, this is almost a 10% grade, this road. The water used to, when we got here, and for the 15,000 years since the glacier did its big tillage on this piece of land, water went charging down through into the Blanchard Brook and out into the Winooski River and into Lake Champlain. And we have turned the water everywhere. We call it the 12-step program, but we're kind of past 12. We've turned every bit of water. We're carrying all the water, which used to go charging right down into the brook. We've now turned it flat. And so this is now a series of terraces. And we're kind of getting to the final, where we've been heading, that's southwest. We've been heading southwest for years. This is there's a place here where this wall occurs, where we're almost 40 feet above original grade on what we call hugels, German for pile. A lot of the substance of our terraces is big wood and brushwood and so on. And each of these terraces is intended to filter the water that flows through our process. So in each case, we're moving water to specific filters. There's All right, so that's the site. Jump back in time a little bit to think about why do we make compost? Why do we want to make compost? And this is well, that the toddler in that picture is now adult enough to call and ask for a job. This goes back to when we built this house, this little greenhouse, and we our intention and ambition was to make soil blocking mixes, and so here we are. In this case, we've always grown some vegetables on the farm since '96 when we bought it, and this particular space was built originally. It's a 27 by 60 foot greenhouse with half-inch hardware cloth to keep chickens in and predators out. And this is where we first did our process of raising day-old birds. And you can see it's kind of a yin-yang space. It's got plant propagation in the same place as where we're raising young birds, and we invited in parent birds to teach the mail order youngins how to eat food, which they needed to know. And then that space rotated again. Why do we make compost? It's so that we can support fertility of soils and grow crops. So that's the same space in its summer iteration. It's raised birds in the fall. I mean, in the spring, and then they've moved on up to the free to leave zone. This is actually last year, you can see, or possibly the year before. That house now has peaches and grapes, no longer raises birds. We do grow trials in it, plant trials. Back to the why we make compost. This is our team of mammoth genets. Those are our 2 brood genets. We now have 8. Those are 2 mothers. We have a father, and now we got youngins. And this is us last fall, I think, spreading compost on vegetable ground. Again, the why do we make compost, and does it matter? These are 2 trays of microgreens. The tray on the right is a product that people use. Another organic potting soil, or acceptable for use in organic production, certified organic production. These seeds were seeded on the same day and kept in the same space, and so media matters in terms of performance. That obviously harvesting the left-hand tray is going to be more profitable than harvesting the right-hand tray, and the investments have all been the same in terms of effort up to this moment. Again, just kind of a quick view of what do we do. This is a remote site that we've now operated for 21 years. It's about 4 miles away. It's very close to the barns on a dairy farm, just showing that this is a complete different, it's 4 miles away, but it's a completely different topography. This is an ancient lake bottom. It was a shallow lake bottom in Lake Vermont. It's over a ridge. And it was all we could do as we developed this site when we first built it, to develop we never got quite 3% grades anywhere, but it's very stabilized by many years of use now, and has a lot of space, and we still make compost there. These are just simple turned windrows. That turned with a loader. You might note the bucket is a little odd looking. We can talk about that, but it's a bucket. We now have 5 of those on the farm, and we like it a lot because we can really see what we're doing, and it has a lot of reach. You're seeing the whole cutting edge in that bucket. Makes it very possible to pick things up without picking up you can see, and being able to see is good. Our approach to thinking about how composts work owes, in my own training and thinking, a lot to how sherries are made. And this is Don Jose Ignacio Domecq, known as the Nose. And he was said to be able to tell. And sherries, for those who don't know, are blended. Some of the earliest wine from what was called the Solera is in today's wine. It's a series of what they call scales, and blends through over time. And so yeah, that informs some of our thinking about how to manage compost making. That's me a number of years ago in our office, bringing air in through the compost. I think of my nose as one of my main tools to tell when composts are foul or fair or ready for whole media work. It's one thing to spread compost on a field. It's another thing to be sure that it will perform as you hope it will in a complete growing media, which is what we have that's a lot of what we do for a living, is make whole media, make composts, and then we utilize them to make whole media. So today here at Vermont Compost, this is the household drop off at the farm. We actually service this with the truck that we use to collect food around the town, and I believe we're going to see the current rate of deposition here, we're going to see 500 cubic yards of food scraps from this one drop off. And where it says no compost, this tub is a cover material. So people are invited to sprinkle this compost peat shavings blend on their offering, and take some home to be at the bottom of their compost bucket. People who are in the know take some home. And that's down here. Okay, so many things, food gets blended up here. This is where it's getting fed to chickens, and then it gets distributed to windrows, set up. So, and this is where a lot of inbound bark up here, cow manure, we're at a little bit of a low ebb the day this was shot. So this is where food tips. This particular bunch comes from a kimchi maker and is brought to us by an independent hauler who has that job. And well, if you look at this is what we would call very high quality wasted food or uneaten food. It's not getting wasted anymore. So it gets dumped in that pit, which has a floor made out of a combination of blended cow manure, horse manure, spoiled feed, and hardwood bark. We call that blend hot mix, and we always incorporate food basically as soon as we get it. This was just a busy moment yesterday. Here's the hauler bringing the kimchi. Here's a hauler bringing whey from the Vermont Creamery, goat creamery in Barre, Vermont. We have been getting I think it's 3 of these 1,500 gallon loads of whey every week. And here's a roll-off truck dropping a cow manure or horse manure. Just a busy moment at the top of the hill. Okay, yeah. So there's Robbie gesticulating. This is moving forward. We're planning to add more containers and try to improve our logistics. This is the food blended coming out of that pit into what's called hot mix, and this is actually what gets fed to the chickens. Down here is the chicken house. Here's the chicken feeding house, and here are windrows on that upper deck, and this is where we're receiving the raw materials. Raw materials are received on a substantial berm of bark that gets rotated into the process a few times a year. So we put anything raw or wet or on a raised surface of bark to sop up the juice and get the full benefit. And here's inbound hardwood bark. It's on a pile of pine, which has been there for a number of years. And these are a pine bowl fuel chip, no bark in that. Or very little bark. So we currently manage probably 7 or 8 distinct wood products on the farm. And here again, This is those fuel chips. This is actually yesterday, just how interested birds are in the emerging pasture possibility. Okay, they actually and okay, this again, this is how we collect food around the city mostly. Though we also in the summer we've been actually collecting food scraps in the city with a team of donkeys. And this is a refrigerated trailer with side doors, called a city delivery type trailer. It's a 48-foot trailer, and in it we have a washing setup to hot water pressure wash these totes. We're still using propane to heat that water. Not proud of that, but there it is. So this is food comes down on a daily basis from those blend piles and gets assembled in these piles that the birds are feeding on. We don't buy any food other than this for the chickens as a rule. We buy a little bit of scratch here in case you want to call chickens' attention to something, though. This photograph was taken while that whole group of birds is out on that emerging pasture. So they were, and these birds are actually free to leave the place if that is what they want to do. Looking in there, did I get another? Yeah, okay. This is looking back at that pile standing between the buildings. This is the egg collector, which is a slow belt that moves through there. The birds lay in these boxes, it rolls down on the belt. You go in the packing house, which is at the other end, turn on a switch, there's electric eye, and the eggs come slowly to you. It has really reduced, it keeps our eggs a lot cleaner. When I happened to take this picture yesterday, Beth had just put the roosts up and added bedding to this pack. We add bedding twice a week to this pack and harvest I think the schedule now is a couple times a month or monthly, depending on the weather. In the winter, we tend to run a deeper pack. These are the bottom ventilation. This is top ventilation. And that room in there is a heated space with egg washing, though we're doing much less washing. Our ambition is not to wash the eggs, so we only wash dirty eggs. Not a very good shot, but this is another supply. We raise mammoth jackstock. There's last year's, he's going to be a year old next month. And we do that on a pack. There are two feeding, I didn't photograph them both, but we have two feeding stations that we feed large square bales. This is again, just another picture of simple windrows. We just got seagulls. They just showed up lately. Another crucial tool, those photographs, that material behind that excavator are two different bulk sphagnums. The one on the left from Maine and the one on the right from just north of the Bay of Fundy in New Brunswick. We're in transition trying to get all of our sphagnum in bulk for blending purposes. And we depend on excavators. This has a mechanical coupler. You can turn the bucket so that you can front shovel relatively quickly. That bucket is quite a big bucket. It's a 2.7 cubic yard bucket. And we do a lot of our management of materials. So the two tools that we use primarily are loaders and excavators. This is one of our excavators. This is the quick view of a mixing process once compost is finished, and where we're using this little loader, 1 yard loader, to be mixing a potting soil material. And here we're screening potting soil material. Threw that in there just because, wow, that's maybe the most important piece of equipment on the place at this point, and a mechanic to drive it around and fix things. Yeah. So, people hearing me? Yeah. Okay. Again, we utilize simple tools, kind of industrial standard tools, loaders, excavators, and this is the third key tool is the trommel screen. We use couple of different sizes. Lately, kind of now the screen above that one that we just looked at, we've now changed from woven wire to an auger with a punch plate. So then there's getting the product to market. Very simple tool, fill the sling bags. That's what it looks like. Built that a number of years ago. Have yet to come up with a better idea. And this is a lot of how we send product now to, come in 1,000 mostly greenhouse customers, farmers, so on. Really crucial to the operation is the lab. Got this is not a great picture of the lab. Lab is actually evolving, but some idea. We have a bunch of other tools, standard things, EC, pH, nitrate, moisture, oven, sizing screens so we can control, just to focus on making sure that all the parameters are behaving. This is perhaps the most crucial part of the lab work. We put together this situation that we hope is, gives us a lot of control over the photo period and temperature and so on. And every batch of material, we sometimes say that the plant is the customer, the farmer is just the person who decides whether to pay us for it or somebody else. So we ask the plants a lot. We grow a broad range of cultivars that are of interest to our customers, and also that give us indication of things like persistent pyrenes and so on. But we do a lot of poking and prodding of the mix and weighing and looking just to try to keep a consistency happening. All right, so I'm going to go back to this this shot and invite questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karl. That is a great introduction. And so folks can type in or raise their hand, and you can if you want to ask your question. And Karl, just like back to that last slide about all your, I think in the industry we call them like bioassays. And you mentioned pyrenes. Are you keeping an eye out? By pyrenes, he means persistent herbicides in that family of herbicides, correct?
Yes. Yeah. That's one of the. Well, it's one of the. We were doing bioassays before the pyrene. Back in the first time I knew much about pyrenes was, I think, 2001 or 2 in Spokane, Washington. The first greenhouses full of dead tomatoes issue, and we were already doing bioassays just to be sure that the media was working, because for greenhouse growers in our climate and in most climates where people are using greenhouses, you don't necessarily get multiple shots at starting seeds. If you're going to start onions in January or December or even a little earlier, because you need them for field planting and your mix doesn't work, you won't catch up again. So it's really the quality of the plant that a vegetable grower produces, flower grower, anyone who's producing plants for production is extremely important to them. So the responsibility when you make a whole media, there are really only 3 legs in a media. There's the plant material, the genetics of the plant. There's the media and the hand of the grower. Those are the 3-legged stool of plant production in manufactured media. And so unless, it's a lot of responsibility, my point.
Well, Ben noted how amazingly flat the site looks from the drone footage. Just really, having been there, yeah, these are like terraces.
Yeah, so to give you an idea, Um, this this drop right here is a sheer drop of almost 20 feet, and it steps again. Things are very steep here. This so from the top of this pile to the base of this wall, I mean, this is more than 8 feet. This right here, this pile is 16, 18 feet tall. I mean, if you look at it next to this, here's a 13-foot high tractor trailer, right? So yeah, this is very steep. Most people now it actually flattens out quite a bit up here. I plowed all of this for vegetables. I should say that, as we've been now 25, 26 years of making major alterations, certainly the biggest alterations in topography that this site has endured or enjoyed since glaciation has been us. But always we're thinking that this particular phase, this chapter of this farm's biography, this chapter of mitigation of industrial culture will only last for some number of decades. And our intention going into this is to have this site be more productive as a farm for that future time than it was when we started to manage it. So our goal is to leave a layout, a topography, a water management that has a higher photosynthetic potential than the place we started with, which was an old dairy farm that, actually in parts had some hay mining going on with fertilizer. Like this whole side of the farm had been hayed and we're changing the as we spill. It's been very interesting. If you look at this coloration here, this is an area of the farm that grows bracken. Ferns are and as we keep moving the spill from this waterway out, brome and clover show up. Now, we didn't plant brome and clover; it was already there in the soil. And as we pour this collected effluent from our activities, and I should say, we have a clean water situation right in there is a little pond. Right up here is a little pond. Our ambition is to keep this upper pond potable. That's why this road is itself an onlay made out of filter sand, intended to be keeping that little pasture and that water clean. Here we call it the frog pond. It's an original. That's actually a hole I dug when I bought the farm, and this is all added filter material that carries any process liquids not in that in that pond. So the evolution is to build these terraces, turn this thing to the southwest, and then long term, hopefully, turn it into a vineyard and pear orchard, that kind of thing. Pears here.
Karl, what are the compost pad? What's the compost pad constructed or pads constructed of?
All right, and quite a variation here. So right here we have a well between the greenhouse and the house. It's 95 feet of unconsolidated riverine deposit, an alluvium. By the time you get to about here, this ramp is on bedrock, and it's at its grade because there was bedrock there. Up here, this was all relatively shallow, like 3 or 4 feet to bedrock, sometimes less. So at the time that we started doing this task here, Vermont required a separation, well, in those days, of 6 feet to bedrock. It then got changed to 3 feet to bedrock. We everywhere utilize a separation to bedrock of a minimum of 4 feet. That gives us safety. But in several of these places, like up here, we're in many places 6 and 7 feet of additional soil or material. So the deeper hugels. Like here we've gotten places more than 34 feet of, and you can almost see up here in this corner. This is where we're stockpiling wood. We get a lot of. We have several tree service folks around who don't necessarily want to chip everything. We get a whole range of wood, all the way from quite large, 26-inch logs to brush to wood chips, all coming from the tree service people. We make it very easy. This is a pile where tree people can leave their wood chips. They can set their chipper off and unload. And then heavy wood we put, well, here's a pile of it as these hugels move out across. So all of this is built structurally out of wood that's infilled with a blend of wood chips, what we call slop. We end up with a lot of material. We blend ramial wood chips, what we call the inbound, mostly hardwood. The folks from chips from tree services, and we blend that material with manufactured granite, sand, and basalt. These are and calcium carbonate. These are piles of calcium carbonate. These white piles from the Champlain Valley. There's a little pile of granite and basalt blended. We blend that with the wood chips, and we apply that with a tractor, a loader-mounted rotary trommel screen. Rotar is the name of the machine, and we use that for traction all winter, and we use wood chips for dust control all summer. So we're constantly applying wood to the farm, and we apply wood blended with these manufactured sands. The ratio that we've evolved is 80% wood and 20% sharp sand. That gives the wood keeps the sand from freezing, so we don't need to use salt. We are highly dependent on traction assistance because we've got an 8% grade on that North Road. We're running live bottom trucks up that roadway all year round, and that generates quite a large amount. Like, I happen to know that this pile here, which is a big pile, that's all what we call slop, getting dried down and headed for being screened as an amendment to the farm. So part of the benefit the farm receives in its life story for hosting this project is that we really are almost at a kind of glacial scale, adding depth to the farm.
So is the slop, are you saying the slop is like the material that you're putting down for traction and then you're taking it back up?
Then we pick it up and stack it. Yeah, because we're constantly making mud, and we stack our mud and make it into products of various kinds. So, but one of the key, this whole thing is a sorting facility, basically. We, that component is quite a bit heavier than what's going in the bag. So in that sense, we kind of ship the light fantastic and keep the heavies at home. And at that level, that's part of the non-cash revenue that the farm has over time. And over the last 20 years, we've been able to add a lot of depth on top of bedrock. We have places where we've added up the hill as much as 12 feet to the profile of the soil.
So Ella has a question. Does all the incoming material, feedstocks, I assume she means, get fed to the chickens before going into windrows?
No, the material moves to the chickens and then gets harvested sequentially after they've had access to it, and it actually gets blended with more horse and cow manure than we're putting in front of the chickens. All of the inbound food gets put in front of the chickens, blended and put in front of the chickens. But then that gets blended in sequence on the way out to the windrow uh, decks.
So the feed is kind of a higher percentage of food than your final kind of compost mix.
Yes, yes, there's more food. We've had a kind of it's a fairly long story to talk about the ebb and flow of food scraps in Vermont. We were as high a few years ago as 2,000 wet tons per annum. We're now hoping to get back up to about half that much. 3 years ago, we got shut off on food altogether and had to start a new food hauling business. We had not done food hauling for about 15 years. Um, and Actually, this may be harbinger for other places. Demand for food, a lot of digester capacity opened up in Vermont. Those are very hungry projects. Depack machines came along. I don't know how many people here know what a depack is or want to talk about depacks. We're because of the new what we call Act 41 that the governor signed into law only last July, that establishes a legal threshold of 2,000 cubic yards per annum of food on if you're feeding poultry. That's the upper limit of the farm designation. If we went over that, we would become a solid waste facility. So we're planning to work around, plateau food at 2,000 cubic yards, which is about half of, that's about 1,000 tons. So that's about half of what we were doing 3 years ago in terms of food. And we believe we are now doing all of our own hauling, which is giving us a lot of control over the quality of the product, and we like it. Probably should never have given it up, but 20 years ago it seemed like a good idea if somebody else would do the hauling to let them do it.
So Teresa has a question. When the chickens are feeding on the food scrap mix, is there any concern about them eating moldy foods or materials that might make them sick?
One of the reasons we've selected chickens for this, and I should say that we've produced eggs for sale every day of every year here since '98. Without, so we've had chickens foraging on this process through its variations as we've unfolded it. Chickens, our chickens live a long time. They lay eggs. They live after they lay eggs, unless we cull them. We're not, to our knowledge, we've never experienced chickens dying from something they ate. They have a lot of opportunity to select, and that's something they're very good at. I mean, many years ago, before we were even before we were on this site making compost elsewhere, got involved in thinking about feeding swine with food scraps, and swine can be fed food scraps. There are a lot of federal rules about pasteurizing for swine, because there are a lot of diseases that swine and humans can share. That's very much exponentially less true about humans and poultry. And swine are a lot more delicate than poultry. Poultry are very good at, they eat very small things, so they can pick around broken glass. They actually flush plastic out of piles. They in their scratching. So they're incredibly durable animals. So the answer is no. We don't worry about it. We've had no trouble.
Let's see. And how about predators?
Yeah, predators. So earlier you saw a picture of a German Shepherd in there with those baby birds. For years we had a line of, actually German Shepherds, Schutzhund, level 2 and 3 dogs. And we thought that dogs were very important, especially in terms of managing foxes and coyotes. We ran out of dogs a few years ago, I was actually surprised that we did not endure an enormous uptick in predators. We still sometimes episodically have some fox issues. We we one the one benefit of having predators in the sociology of chickens is that it encourages prudence for chickens. So where they go and when they come back all gets learned. Sometimes when the foxes are ill, when we have rabies or mange, and you start seeing foxes in daylight, we do shoot them with steel shot. Coyotes, we should say we have donkeys in the pasture at the perimeter, jackass, quite big animals. I'm now feeling like, I used to think that it was the dogs that kept us from having bear trouble, because the bears wander around in the city of Montpelier kind of at will, but we have yet to have any bear arrival. And I'm starting to feel like that's because of the presence of the donkeys. I think it's a smell that makes bears nervous. Otherwise, I can't explain why we don't have bears. Many people in our neighborhood give up keeping poultry because bears break into their chicken houses. We have open piles of food, and it would be everything that a bear you would think would want. But so now I'm unsure, but think it's probably the influence of the donkeys. Certainly, the very active presence of large donkeys, and when I say large, our Jack weighs 900 pounds or more. I've got one of his progeny, a 5-year-old, who's going to be weighing 1,000 pounds here, and they are very, very unwelcoming of canines that they don't know. So suburban dogs, and we're in the suburbs. Just to the south of this, over those trees, is a homeowners association with 84 dwellings. So we're literally on Main Street in the capital city. So yeah, predators are a thing, but not a terrible thing. We stay well roostered. That tends to deal with the smaller predators like weasels and rats and so on. And we do lose some birds here and there, but it's apparently life.
So a question that Liz Weir has, and I think this was a question that maybe didn't get answered during our last Q&A, but this is actually a perfect opportunity for this. Are you doing all of your soil compost testing in-house, or do you still send stuff out? And I guess, what sort of tests do you value that you're, use in terms of sending it out to labs? And do you do any microbiological testing?
So we do both in-house and typically something like quarterly. We do extensive university lab work, maybe a little more often than quarterly. But so we in-house we do sizing, moisture, pH, EC, nitrate, and then we send out for those to the University of Maine currently, just sort of to corroborate what we're doing, and then we get total. We do total contents that we can't assess. So total nitrogen, total organic matter, we have that done by labs. So we do both. There was a corollary part of the question.
Yeah. So actually, two. Yeah. So one is nitrate. What are you looking for in nitrate? That's not one that you hear about very often. Composters doing, at least in house.
Yeah. Well, we want to. We're not equipped to measure ammonium. Okay, but. And we have done outside, but nitrate we are equipped to measure, and it gives us some indication. Because it relates to EC, we want to be sure that the media has sufficient nitrate, and we track nitrate as plants grow, because we're looking to see devolution of nitrate from proteins in the dynamic of the grow. So it's one of the parameters that we're interested in comparing. Nitrate changes at different moments of curing. This is potting soil now, and seasonally and so on. So nitrate is one of the parameters that gives us a tool for um, uh, um, reassurance about what performance is going to be. Because in terms of keeping plants growing, nitrate is a very important parameter.
And how about microbiological
So
factors?
we have done we actually are getting ready again to kind of refresh our microscopes. But yeah, we have done we do a fair amount intermittently of microscopy. We don't have a regular protocol to be looking for specific biota at this point. Um, we haven't we haven't found a protocol that we think is important to us yet. Um, we we have had our material assessed, and many of our customers have subjected our material to some of the counting labs that count biota, and we know that that we frequently enjoy fungal fragments of greater than 3 angstroms, and that seems to be something that people who think counting those things is important value. Um, we're trying to stay abreast of what maybe we should be doing more of that than we do.
Um,
Yeah.
do you allow community drop off leaves? I don't know if that's even a thing in in Montpelier all that much.
We do, though we haven't emphasized it, and we would actually like to get more leaves than we do, clean leaves. It's something you know, yeah, we thought about and talked about. The city of Montpelier collects leaves. They don't do a very clean job of it, I have to say. Um, so, and they have a stump dump where they take leaves, and they do some sort of manipulation of those leaves. Um, yeah, it's just something we haven't really gotten good at getting.
And the follow up is that how do you avoid contaminants like dog poop?
If we were, you mean in a thing like leaves?
Something like leaves, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, and I'm not sure that we would think of dog poop as a terrifying contaminant. I mean, we could certainly compost incidental dog poop without risk. Um, uh, the more concern with leaves generally are plastics, flower pots, bags, straight out trash, Happy Meals, um, and then to the extent that leaves are gathered by vacuuming them at curbside, you start having volatiles from car exhaust, and those are measurable. So we don't necessarily want something that's vacuumed up after it's been a month with effluent from automobiles flowing through it. Uh, Ditto landscaping materials. We're alert. We don't like root balls from commercial potting soils with plastic coated pesticide fertilizer boluses. So we, for instance, we'll take the aerial portion of ornamentals in our composting. We forbid root balls unless the soil came from us. And I guess did I answer the question, Ish?
No, that's great. Yeah, I think I'm thinking maybe a 10-minute break. We can all process this all for a minute and give Karl a quick water break, and we'll be back at 2:35
All right.
for more questions. All right, and yeah, I'll just mute.